18 minutes to 7 o'clock. Someone who's smiling about the two-pot system is, of course, the South African Revenue Service. 40 billion rand collected through tax and of people deducting from the two-pot allowance in the first week going to the South African Revenue Service. But the National Employers Association of South Africa, NEASA, pleading with employers to educate the employees about making withdrawals from the two-pot retirement system. And we talk about this money on a Monday. And NEASA's concern is that by having access, of course, to a portion of their retirement savings, they impoverish their future selves, losing out on the benefits of compound interest. Jaco Swart is the National Manager of NEASA. Good morning, Jaco. We really appreciate your time. Is it the responsibility of employers to educate their staff?
Good morning, Lisa. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, it's probably not their responsibility, but it's morally probably the right thing to do. You know, we live in an economy where people are already battling. The cost of living is outstripping wage increases. And only about 6% of South Africans currently are able to retire independently. So, by stripping your savings from your retirement fund on an annual basis, it's just going to exacerbate that problem going forward. So in the future, that's going to place an additional burden on families and on the government, who already need to pay pension to a lot of people. So, it's going to create a problem downstream if we do not educate people about the realities of this and the consequences of withdrawing these savings.
Education. It boils down to that, or the lack thereof. I can say in my scholarly, in my academic, and in my professional life, the only people that I've really received financial education from is someone who wanted to help me with an investment. Did not receive any financial information, did not receive any information on how a tax system works. That I myself, and I'm a middle-class professional South African, I've had to figure that out along the way. And I think for people who work in other industries, particularly young people starting out, there is very little of this financial education. Do you think that corporates and employers should be bringing on these people, and more than just the payroll and HC department, maybe have an in-house financial advisor and saying, this is what you're being paid, this is the contribution to the tax, to your pension, this is how compound interest works, and this is, if you continue to go on this momentum, this is how much you'll end up with when you retire. Do you think there should be that type of education within a professional corporate work environment?
Absolutely. I think it's very important. In fact, I think that should already start at schooling age. Our schooling system does not teach that kind of financial acumen to anybody. Like you said, people need to figure it out themselves. So I think it's important for employers to educate their employees and to look out for their future. Otherwise, even those employees, the day they retire and don't have sufficient funds, is going to come back and look at that employer and say, well, why didn't you tell me first of all, and what are you going to do about it now? So, I think it's very important to educate people, and particularly also on this two-pot system in terms of tax implications. Because if you withdraw from your savings account, you're going to pay at a much higher tax rate, your marginal tax rate, than under the retirement rules when you actually take the money when you retire. So that is something that's very important, needs to be stated to employees.
Jaco, households are stressed. We are struggling under household debt. The cost of living is so expensive. There could very much be an argument from some employers, a comeback that says, well, we have no choice to dip in. We need to be paid more by our employers to help deal with this crippling cost of living in South Africa.
Yeah. That is understandable. Unfortunately, employers are also hampered by economic growth. Our country is not growing. Our economy is not growing. We can't compete with countries abroad. So it's very difficult. Unfortunately, our wages versus our productivity and our income has outstripped it. Employers in general like to pay employees. When they do well, they normally do pay employees. But it's also a skills issue. Our education system is among the worst in the world. And that's an issue as well. We don't have many highly skilled, highly paid employees. Unfortunately, most of our employees are low skilled employees. So we're not a first world, we're not a high income economy, we're not a skilled economy. And that creates a massive problem as well.
Before I let you go, Jaco, I'd like your response from the story that came out with the pension funds adjudicator saying they've only received a trickle of reports now of the last 16 days since the two-pot system has been in place. But last year they dealt with the issue. Several hundred complaints of employers not paying pension fund contributions. And I'd like your response to that. Is it a concern for you as NEASA?
Well, of course, if employers are obligated to do so, and many industries do have compulsory pension or provident funds in the specific sector, especially where there are bargaining councils present. If that is not being paid by employers, that is obviously concerning, and there are compliance measures in place to do that. But we do assist with that if employers do find themselves in that difficult situation. But a lot of the times it's also because employers simply cannot afford to pay it. But there are ways to deal with it. But it is a concern, definitely.
Jaco Swart, National Manager of NEASA. Really appreciate your time.